Ukraine, the war that redefined Europe. The war in Ukraine isn't just about borders. It's about the shape of global power in the 21st century. When Russian tanks rolled across the border on February 24, 2022, it wasn't a small regional invasion. It was Europe's biggest land war since World War II. Cities like Mariupol and Bakhmut became symbols of destruction. Entire skylines turned to ash. Millions of people fled west, turning Poland and Germany into temporary sanctuaries. This war didn't appear out of nowhere. After the Soviet Union fell in 1991, Ukraine became independent but remained tied to Russia through history, energy, and culture. Things snapped in 2014 when Russia took Crimea and backed separatists in the Donbass. 8 years later, Putin went all in, and suddenly the post-Cold War order broke apart. Key battles like Kyiv's defense showed the world that Ukraine wouldn't fold. Drones replaced trenches, memes became morale weapons, and NATO found new life. But the cost? Cities gone, soldiers lost, and an energy crisis that rippled across continents. Right now, the front line runs hundreds of miles, grinding forward and backward for meters at a time. The outcome will define not just Ukraine's borders, but whether smaller nations anywhere can stand up to bigger ones. Next, a war that's been burning for decades in one of the world's most densely packed pieces of land, Gaza. Gaza, a century of anger in a strip of land. Gaza is a tiny stretch of coast just 41 kilometers long, but it's one of the most explosive places on Earth. Over 2 million people live there, most under blockade, surrounded by walls, fences, and drones. Every few years, it erupts into war. The roots go back to 1948, when the State of Israel was created and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled. Many ended up in Gaza, a narrow slice between Israel and Egypt. By 2007, Hamas took control. Israel sealed the borders, and since then, it's been a cycle of rocket fire, airstrikes, and shattered lives. The world watched again in October 2023, when Hamas fighters launched a deadly attack that killed around 1,200 Israelis and took hostages. Israel's response was massive. Months of air raids, ground incursions, and blockades that left Gaza in ruins and thousands dead. Hospitals turned into shelters, electricity vanished, and water became as precious as gold. This isn't just a local fight, it's a global fault line. The US, Iran, and regional powers are drawn in. Every explosion in Gaza shakes Middle Eastern politics, from Cairo to Tehran. Today, Gaza stands as a symbol of endless struggle, a place where generations have lived and died under siege. The question isn't when the next ceasefire comes, it's whether peace is even possible anymore. Next, we move to Africa, to a country tearing itself apart from the inside out. Sudan, a country at war with itself. In April 2023, gunfire echoed across Khartoum. Sudan's capital turned into a war zone almost overnight. Two generals, once allies, went to war for control of the country. The result? One of the worst humanitarian crises on the planet. The fight is between the Sudanese armed forces, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group under Mohammed Hemedti Dagalo. Both men helped oust longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir in 2019. Both promised democracy. Instead, they're shelling cities and starving civilians. Sudan has a bloody history. From the Darfur genocide in the 2000s to decades of civil war before South Sudan split away in 2011, violence has always been part of its story. But this war is different. It's urban, chaotic, and deeply personal. Whole neighborhoods have been destroyed. Millions have fled, crossing into Chad, Egypt, and South Sudan. The UN calls it one of the fastest-growing displacement crises on Earth. Hospitals have been looted, aid convoys attacked, and even food warehouses bombed. The war is spreading, and with it, famine. What happens in Sudan matters far beyond Africa. The Red Sea, oil pipelines, and migration routes all pass through this region. If Sudan collapses completely, the ripple could hit every corner of the continent. Next stop, a fight that hasn't fully erupted but could drag the world's biggest powers into one place. The South China Sea, the future flashpoint of the world. The South China Sea looks calm from space's endless blue water. But beneath the waves sits one of the most contested regions on Earth. China claims nearly all of it, using its 9-dash line. The problem? So do the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. This sea isn't just water, it's power. It carries about 30% of global trade, holds massive oil and gas reserves, and serves as a highway for warships from multiple nations. Over the past decade, China has built artificial islands with military bases, radar towers, and airstrips. Imagine sandbars turning into fortresses. The U.S. conducts freedom of navigation patrols to challenge Beijing's claims. Jets buzz past each other, ships sail within meters, and everyone waits for one mistake, one collision that could start a war. In 2016, an international court ruled against China's claims. Beijing ignored it. Tensions hit new highs in 2023 when Chinese Coast Guard vessels used water cannons on Philippine supply boats near 2nd Thomas Shoal, Manila, called it harassment. Beijing called it enforcement. The world called it dangerous. If conflict ever breaks out here, it wouldn't just be regional. The US, Japan, and Australia have defense treaties. Taiwan sits nearby. A fight in these waters could pull half the planet into it. Next, a conflict hidden behind headlines, a war that's been grinding on for nearly a decade. Yemen, the forgotten humanitarian disaster. Yemen is where modern war meets medieval suffering. Since 2015, the country has been split between Houthi rebels backed by Iran and a Saudi-led coalition supporting the government. The result? The world's worst humanitarian crisis. This war began as a local power struggle after the Arab Spring, but quickly, it became a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two regional giants using Yemen as their chessboard. Airstrikes, blockades, and hunger followed. By 2024, more than 20 million Yemenis, two-thirds of the population, needed aid just to survive. The scenes are brutal. Skeletal children in bombed hospitals, villages cut off by front lines, entire families wiped out by drones. The port of Hodeidah, Yemen's lifeline, has been fought over again and again. Without it, food can't get in. Even when the guns fall silent, disease fills the gap. Cholera outbreaks, fuel shortages, and destroyed infrastructure have turned Yemen into a slow-motion collapse. And yet, it barely makes the news anymore. In 2023 and 2024, peace talks flickered but failed. The fighting in Gaza and tensions in the Red Sea have dragged Yemen back into global focus. If this conflict spills into open seas, it could threaten global shipping and remind the world that Yemen's war never really stopped. Next, one more hotspot not at war yet. Taiwan, the war that hasn't started. Taiwan is the flashpoint everyone's watching. A democratic island just 130 kilometers off China's coast. It's home to 23 million people, and the world's most advanced microchip industry. China says it's part of its territory. Taiwan says it's not. The roots go back to 1949, when China's civil war ended with Mao's communists taking the mainland and the defeated nationalists fleeing to Taiwan. Ever since, Beijing has vowed to reunify by force if needed. For decades, it was just threats. Now it feels real. Chinese fighter jets regularly cross into Taiwan's air defense zone. Warships circle the island. In 2022, when U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taipei, Beijing launched massive military drills. Every year, the exercises get closer, like rehearsals for an invasion. The stakes couldn't be higher. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors, the chips that power everything from iPhones to missiles. If war breaks out, global supply chains crash overnight. The US and Japan say they'd defend Taiwan. China says it's ready for reunification. One wrong move, one miscalculated missile test, and the 21st century could change forever. Every major power knows it. The next world war, if it happens, might start here.